Okay, seriously, can't make this up. I thought, wow, this is a hell of a coinkydink. Did you catch the episode I did last night? It's the first episode I dropped in several weeks, and it talked about the myth of the life work balance. And I'm a retired banker, but I still subscribe to and read the Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, etc., pretty much on a daily basis. And much to my surprise, I went over to the Wall Street Journal, and this is what you see right now today, an article that they put on the Wall Street Journal. They put this article right here. Why is everyone so unhappy at work right now? Work life balance and pay have improved for many American workers, yet they are more dissatisfied than they were in the thick of the pandemic. Isn't that interesting? Last night, I do my first video in several weeks on this channel about the myth of life work balance, especially when it comes to being an it was an emphasis on when you're an entrepreneur because you're growing a business and you're doing all kinds of things, and to think that you're going to have any kind of balance, just that's not the reality of it. And then Wall Street Journal has that, and right when you log on to the website, like you get on there and that's what you see. So right here on their front page is that article. And what kind of great insights do they have in this article, you may ask? Well, great question. Why don't we look at it together really quickly? U.S. employees are more dissatisfied than they were in the thick of the pandemic. Oh, why could that be? Could it possibly be that people liked working from home and not having to deal with office politics? Having the flexibility of, hey, I'll be transparent with you. Why not? I got a dress shirt on today for some other work activities I was doing, but hey, I'm in my basketball shorts. Look at this. Look at this. That's the beauty of working from home. I remember one time on CNN, what's his name? The fat guy. And I can say fat guy because I'm a fat guy. I can't remember his name. But I think during the pandemic when they were doing stuff from home, he tweeted out, that he had his sport coat on and his shirt. And it looked like he had boxers on. Now that's a little TMI. But I just got some board shorts on because, in the middle of the workday, I go for a walk. And this is craziness that Wall Street Journal would have this on here. But let's it's a coinkydink. It's nothing more, nothing less than a coinkydink. But could it be that people are not as satisfied going back to work because they didn't miss any of the office politics? Americans, by many measures, are unhappier at work than they have been in years. Despite wage increases, more paid time off, and greater control over where they work, the number of U.S. workers who say they are angry, stressed, and disengaged is climbing. Well, first of all, and this article does mention it, let's not forget that pay increase, even if you got a 10% pay increase and real inflation is over 10%, you didn't get a pay increase. You're actually broker because of inflation. The article says, in interviews with workers around the country, it is clear that the unhappiness part of a rethinking of work life that began in 2020. The sources of workers' discontent range from inflation, which is erasing much of recent pay gains. It's actually not keeping up. I mean, let's be honest here. It's not keeping up. The pay increases aren't keeping up with inflation. But let's just pretend they are. Let's just take the money aspect out of it. What else could be contributing to people's discontent? People chafe against being micromanaged back to offices, yet they also find isolating aspects of hybrid and remote work. A cooling job market, especially in white-collar roles, is leaving many professionals feeling stuck. Wow, Wall Street Journal said so much there, and of course, because Wall Street Journal is just a Wall Street Journal, and they become a ridiculously shadow of their former selves when it comes to their level of journalism. They actually do point out, though they're not going to expound on many key points here, that I would like to point out to you briefly. First of all, being micromanaged back to work. People don't like to be micromanaged, especially when they've shown that during the pandemic, they are able to work without having someone on their shoulder. Okay? No one, I can't say no one likes to be micromanaged. I was a principal manager for a bank in San Diego for several years. And there are people that I worked with that like to be told what to do. They come in and they just like to be told what to do. I'm not going to call it a slave mentality. They know what they have to do, but they like the details filled in for them. They don't or want to figure them out. And obviously those are the people that aren't making the big bucks because they're not the self-driven, independent workers. That could be some support staff or what have you. Nothing wrong with it. Just some people just like to be given instruction and then they follow that instruction. They like to be given code and then they execute the code. But a lot of people, especially those who were very productive working from home, don't like to go back to an office and have someone telling them to do what they already know what to do that they've been doing. Okay, so that could be a part of it. But it says isolating aspects of hybrid and remote work. Now, I have someone that I worked with for years. We worked for several of the same banking firms. We actually were recruited at the same time to go work for this bank. We were both recruited and to become vice presidents of this bank. And this person's a social being. There was actually three of us. That were recruited to work for this bank. And I give me my branch, give me my support staff, and I'm gonna rock and roll. We're gonna grow this thing. Okay, I don't need someone micromanaging me. I didn't miss the social aspect. I'm happily married, have 4 kids, I have friends, I go to church, I'm active in different things. I didn't need, it's nice to have coworkers and colleagues and what have you, but I didn't need that. I didn't feel isolated not being in the workplace. Now I had another coworker, and they didn't feel the same way. They often, we talk on the phone or whatever. They have their own branch, as we were both recruited as vice presidents to work for this bank, and we had our separate things going, but we check in, and he's like, yeah, I really miss, A, B, and C, people that we worked with for years, that we built a relationship and rapport and we saw every single day, and then, I had assistants and I had support staff and what have you. But it is nice to have face to face, but I can't say that I missed it. This other individual absolutely missed it. Part of their professional life that they enjoyed was going in and schmoozing. This is the kind of person that would sometimes hang around a little too long in at your desk in your office, or prolong a conversation when you're trying to run into the break room for a quick water and maybe to finish up your burrito that you didn't finish for lunch. And then the third person, oh, she absolutely loved it. She absolutely loved being able to be so. She was like me. But she was more operational. So I was on this end and she was on the end. She loved it. She loved not being micromanaged. Very productive, and that's why she's making the big bucks. But some people do miss. They do miss the camaraderie, the sociality, the social aspect, the high touch with the high tech. So that is a valid point. Now it says companies have largely moved on from the pandemic operating mode, cutting costs and renewing focus on productivity. Well, I think it would be very easy, especially companies that had people working remotely during the pandemic, to be able to quickly recognize who was productive. And with people coming back to the office, they maybe say, okay, Susie Q was producing X amount while she was working remotely. Now she's producing X plus 7. So obviously she is more productive. And therefore, we should let her stay home and work remotely. Or it may be the inverse. And then you bring that person back in. But that's the thing about corporations, is they can't tailor to the worker. A lot of times it's got to be a one size fits all. Anyway, I just thought this was a very interesting article to come out in the Wall Street Journal today, November 27th, this morning, by Vanessa Furmans and Lindsay Ellis. literally, let's see, I probably recorded mine, I don't know, 18 hours or so after I did mine, my last one. I just want to share some news with you really quick here as a retired banker. PNC Bank is closing 19 additional branches. They had closed 203 earlier in the year, especially in Pennsylvania and Illinois. They're seeing a real hit here. Now, what's interesting is that PNC is America's sixth largest bank, which is very interesting to me. Because I think they did that recently. I didn't realize they were that high up. I think they did that through acquisition. For instance, I don't think they had any presence in California. I see that they have a presence now because they acquired another bank. I can't remember what the bank was before. Anyone in California can remind me which what bank they had acquired to come into California. Maybe they were in California, but I see that they're bigger in California through acquisition. They're the sixth largest, so they come into a state like California, they acquire some banks, become number six, and then they start closing branches. I find it to be very interesting. But if you read, like, if you go over to investing.com, they say that PNC and JP Morgan Chase, and others are closing branches because people are doing more online banking and they just don't need as many retail centers, which is part of it. But I still think it's interesting how there has been some consolidation and some acquisition to gain brick and mortar locations, yet they're closing brick and mortar locations. Now, I'm a retired banker, so I don't know all the play in that. I'm sure a big part of it is obviously if you're in banking, you're looking at margins. There are no bigger margins than making similar profits, more profits, or even the same profits, and cutting overhead like brick and mortar employees and what have you, and forcing, encouraging people to use the apps. Now, it doesn't always work. I started my banking career in 1996 working for Bank of America. I got hired to be a versateller consultant or something. That's some fancy name for it. What I did was I was in branches that were about to build in-store branches, and I would encourage people to sign up, open an account with Bank of America, but have this versatile checking account where you would actually get penalized from going to the bank and using a teller. You were encouraged to make your deposits and do all your transactions through the ATM. Now, this is in the beginning where the internet is just really starting to take shape, so people weren't doing online banking, but they're trying to get people to use the automatic teller machines. I always thought it was funny that we say ATM machines when the M in ATM is machines, but we that's what we were encouraging people to do. Then I moved into the in-store branches, and then I was in management of in-store branches. That's how I got my start in banking. But banks have always been on the forefront of technology, whether it's computing, whether it's using fax machines, or whatever the case may be. But we've also seen that the consumer has moved more over to using technology. So that could be part of the reason. It also could be that, I don't know, we have some economic woes on the way, and banks are trying to hedge against that. Once again, I'm not as active in that part. Oh, actually, never was that active in that part of banking as far as operations and what have you. But very interested to see what the real reasons may be. But if you're a PNC bank customer, excuse me, in the states of Pennsylvania and Illinois, you're going to see quite a few branches closing, and a few in Texas as well. Okay, another little quick story I wanted to just kind of a stream of consciousness. I'm just jumping on here that I want to share with you as well while we're at it. So let's see a review. We've got PNC closing, and it's because of operations. And the Wall Street Journal is reporting that we should see interest rate cuts coming soon. Investors should be expecting that, recession or not. And of course, this is what's happening. Wall Street is gearing up for rate cuts. 20 months after the Federal Reserve began a historic campaign against inflation, investors now believe there's a much greater chance that the central bank will cut rates in just 4 months then raise them again in the foreseeable future. Interest rate futures indicated Monday a 52% chance the Fed will lower rates by at least a quarter of a percentage point by its May 2024 policy meeting, up from 29% at the end of October. Now, why could that possibly be? Could it be that we're in an election year and this helps the current administration? I mean, Trump was very good with making his wishes known to the Fed. On I don't know where you're at politically, but that was good for people who want to buy homes, who business that want to invest, cheap money, and he kept it cheap, putting pressure on them. Is it inconceivable that the Democrats and Biden and his people may be doing the same thing? Sure would make sense during an election year. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for checking in. I'll be back a lot more regularly, so hit that subscribe button, like this video, and hit the notification bell.